Have you ever discovered that you're going to get better if you give something up? If you let it go? I'm pretty convinced right now that we live in a generation or a society right now that if I say let it go, they're singing the song that the kids were singing in the video. But I have discovered that oftentimes to move forward in life requires that we give something up. I know how important it is for us to teach people to hang in there, persevere, don't surrender, don't give up. I mean, that was a value that I tried to teach my children, and so I know how instinctive that is for us to keep saying, just keep, hang in there, keep plowing, keep doing it. But I've also gotten old enough to know that there are times in which the best thing to do is to give it up, to surrender it. I think we all could see that at this moment right now, that folks had to make a decision down in Florida that there's big hurricanes coming, and we're told to get away, to leave, and how difficult a decision that would be to say all these belongings, all these things that I have in this home, my heart, my life is in this home, and I'm going to let it go. Let it go. For the sake of my life, and I'm going to evacuate. How hard that must be. Don't we hurt for them? And don't we hurt for them as they wonder what they're going to return to? Yeah. I know families who have had to come to the point where they said, we had it in our heart, we had it in our mind that we were going to take care of Grandma. She was never going to have to go to a nursing home. And then we came to that place, that moment, that time in which we had to say, we need to let that go. Because Grandma's going to be better off if we put her in a nursing home, where somebody's going to care for her 24 hours, and they're going to be there to help her if she falls. And so we had to let it go. Sometimes we have these plans for our family. Sometimes we have these plans for our children, and we say to our children, well, I'm counting on you becoming this kind of a person, or I want you to go to this kind of school, or I want you to do these kind of things. And as they become 18-year-olds and they start going off in their own direction and making their own plans and making their own, we can choose to fight with them every minute of the day, or we can choose to love them and bless them and walk with them in the path that they have chose. And sometimes, come on, don't you parents all know this? You got to let it go. You got to let it go. And some of us had dreams for our own lives, goals and expectations for our own lives, and something turned and something changed and something became different, and suddenly we find ourselves outside of that goal, wondering if I'll ever be at that goal again. And it's okay to want that goal and have that vision and fight for that, but at the same time there comes a point, come on, we all know this, there comes a point in which we're going to either live in disappointment that I never got to do that for the rest of my life, or I'm going to let it go. You are so blessing. I'm so glad you're back here. Thank you. Thank you. I wonder if it's possible that rather for the church to become what the church wants to be, rather than the church to do one more thing to be what it wants to be, is it possible that what the church really needs to do is to let something go? Let me think with you through that. First of all, let me remind you again of the vision that we have for our church, the calling that we have placed in our heart for what we want for our congregation. And I don't know if any of you will disagree with this. This is just absolutely critical for all of us to say, yeah, that's what we want for our congregation. And for the first thing that we want is for everyone who comes to Sydney First United Methodist Church to experience the love of Jesus that exists in each of us, which requires two things, remember? Two things. One, the love of Jesus has to be in me. And so we want to call forth in you a spiritual direction, a spiritual posture, a willingness to allow God's love to get deep within you, to drill deep within you, so you splash Jesus' love. And so when people encounter you, when they come in your doors, when they say, hey, I want to go to Sydney first, boop, they just come out soaked with the love of Jesus Christ. Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah, it'd be like water balloon fights every day. Just soaked with the love of Jesus. The second thing we want to do is we want to make sure that anybody who comes in knows that anybody who comes in is going to be loved. All of God's people. No matter what they look like, no matter where they've gone, no matter what experience they have, we want everyone to feel welcome. Everybody. Come on in. And know that Sydney First is an open door to all kinds of people. And we want that to be how we manage the church, how we bring our hospitality to the church, through coffee and through donuts or cookies, but also through greeters at the door and through people like you who sit there and say, hey, I never saw that person before. I want to make sure they know that they're welcome in the house of the Lord. You would never allow someone to come into your house and not speak to them, ignore them, and this is your house, right? And so we want all those people to feel as if they're welcome to come into their house. Finally, we want to recognize that very few people have the audacity just to walk in. Most people need to be invited. I mean, think how brave it would be for someone to walk in brand new into something. Some of you won't go into a new restaurant, right? You've got your restaurants, and so you're going to stay in your restaurants because that's what you're familiar with. And just so think how difficult it is for people just to walk in. How brave they must be. And so most people need an invitation. Most people want someone to come with. And so we want to be a community that invites. And we think Revive Ohio is the beginning of that. We want to help encourage people to be out with people and talk with people. But come on. When was the last time you actually invited someone to church? When was the last time you actually took the time to talk to somebody about their church affiliations and their spiritual direction and their faith in God? We're very private with all of that. And so we want to create a culture that says we want to be with people and talk with people. I don't know if I told you this, but not too long ago, I went with a team of people that were going to go out and go to door, and we were inviting people to come to our service next week. One service at 10 o'clock, thank you. And so, we were going out talking with people, and I went down Poplar Road. And I got to the end of Poplar. It's a dead end down there, by the way, just to let you know. There's no reason for anybody to go down Poplar Road to the dead end. And I had to admit that in the 9 years that I've been here, I have never been past the school. There was no reason for me to ever go down that way. And so I was seeing people and knocking on doors of people that in my world had been lost, neighbors of our church. I felt kind of goofy about it. And this is what that means. Things can get messy. That's the risk, isn't it? You let folks come in, and they're going to bring their stuff with them. They're going to bring their addictions. They're going to bring their problems. They're going to bring their emotional unhealthiness in here. They're going to want to see things happen that we're not used to, and they're going to make noises, and they're going to do things that they're going to be weird, and we're all going to have to go, that's got to be okay. That's got to be okay. Because we want the world to come into our church and feel welcome. And so, is it possible that for all of those things to happen, rather than it add something to who we are as a congregation, we need to let something go? Is it possible that the real plan for God for us is for us to lay some things down so that those things can happen? Let's use David as a great example. I don't know if you've ever had a dream that you were going to try to accomplish something and do something, but David suddenly got this dream. He says that the place where the Lord is residing is a tent. It doesn't have a roof. And I go, here I am in this great palace, and God's place should look better than my place. And so he says to Nathan the prophet, he says, Nathan, by the way, this is the same Nathan that challenges him about Bathsheba, if you know the story. But Nathan the prophet, he says, Nathan, I think I ought to build God a house. And Nathan says, you're the king, and everything's going well, and you're winning all the battles, and God's blessing you, and God's with you. And if you're feeling like you ought to do that, baby, I'll just tell you God's going to enjoy that, and God's going to bless that. I think you ought to do that, so go ahead and do that. And then God says something to Nathan the next day. It's like that night, God says to Nathan, no, that's not what I want. And you need to tell David, that's not what I want. I don't want David to build me a house. And so Nathan has to go to David and say to David, you know that dream, that plan that you had, that awesome vision that you had for your reign as king? God doesn't want you to do that. He's going to let your son do that. But this is the promise. Your son's going to get to do that. And your son is going to be the start of another son and another son and another son. And this is my promise, that there will reign forever and ever a king on the throne of David. Now, we know historically that the monarchy ended, but we also know that what changed was that Jesus came, and that Jesus, in line with Mary and Joseph, would have been a descendant of David, and that his kingdom will reign forever and ever. So God fulfilled the promise that he had for David through the Messiah, Jesus Christ. So David has to say, okay, here's a vision I'm going to give up for the greater vision of God. God's going to do something greater than what I thought was going to happen, so I'm going to give up. I'm going to let it go that I'm supposed to build the temple. But what he does, and we see this in 1 Chronicles, is that he says, instead of my building it, I'm going to prepare the way. I'm going to put the right kind of material at the disposal of my son Solomon, and I'm going to put the right builders into place, and I'm going to set up some plans, and I'm going to give Solomon the best start possible. I'm going to lay the foundation for Solomon to build this temple. And so although he wasn't allowed to build the temple, he prepared a way for it to be built. And so he had to give up his vision, his dream, for the greater vision of God. But at the same time, he stayed in there and worked hard so that the next generation behind him would have a place to go, have a head start, if you will. And I think that's the way it ought to work. The church, after the Holy Spirit came, the church was asked to give up some really difficult things. Paul writes in Romans that the very first thing that the church had to give up was this idea that we are saved by being good and righteous. He says to us in Romans, the 3rd chapter, none of us are righteous. Our righteousness comes, our goodness comes, our hope comes through Jesus Christ, not by our works. And that it is only by faith in what Jesus is able to do that we are declared righteous or good. Can you imagine how difficult that was for them to give that up? This idea that I could earn and work and be good enough. That was deeply implanted into that group of people. Peter, in the book of Acts, Peter encounters Gentiles. Gentiles. Come on, Gentiles. If you knew anything about the Jewish people, you know Gentiles. Holy smokes. And he encounters Gentiles, and they appear to have received the gift of the presence of the Holy Spirit. and they want to be baptized. And Peter has to give that up. He has to give up this idea that this faith belongs to the Jews. In fact, he has to sell it. He has to sell it to the church. He says, what could I have done? I could see the Holy Spirit was on these fellas. I could see the Holy Spirit had fallen upon this family. He said, I could do nothing else but follow God's lead, and God decided that the church should be open to the Gentiles of all people. And he had to let it go. He had to let it go. Paul, in working out the work of the church, when he invited the people to come to the church, he said, listen, we've got to know this, that when you're baptized into the church, there are no male or female. There are no Jew or Gentile. There are no free or slave. Everybody is the same. Everybody is initiated into the kingdom of God through the same gift of the Holy Spirit. One Lord, one baptism, one church, one faith. And he says, everybody is equal in the church. How radical is that? And so the church had to give up this idea that there were better and worse, more favored, less favored, and everybody found everything in common. And those who had plenty were generous to those who were not. Deeply rooted thinking for the church that they had to give up so that they could get to a better plan that God had for the church, so that God could bless the church in a greater way. And when those things changed, they didn't quit. They didn't give it up. They said, let's keep working at it so that the next generation is benefited by what we're willing to surrender so the greater plan of God can move forward. So I come to 2017. And I wonder, what does the church need to give up? Let it go. We went through a series there, didn't we, where we said, you know what the church needs to give up is their old songs and those silly hymnals. And we need better music and a little more beat to it, and we need to have people clapping in the services, and we need to put stuff on the screen, and we need to have these better services because everything in these old services is just old. Okay, and we did it. You did it. You made some significant changes for that to happen. All good. All good. But was that deep enough? I mean, did we really give up what we needed to give up? Did we let go the things that we really needed to let go so that the kingdom of God could do something amazing? And I'm asking, what do you think? Because here's what I see when I see the Scriptures. I see these things in the Scriptures. The church has been called to go into all the world to make disciples. And how easy it has been for us as kingdom people to come and gather and sit and leave, but not go. Are you following me? To not really impact the world, to not be the witnesses that make disciples, the disciplers of disciple people, where we invite people into a new life. What would it take for us to let it go so that we really were into the world making disciples? The other things I think of when I think of letting it go, I think of how we think in terms of the church being a song, a prayer, an offering, and a sermon, and let's go home. Let me put my hour in and let's go home. Can I get you to let that go? Because what really needs to happen in church is worship. Somebody said this morning, I was gone all week and I saw you online. Shoot! Let's all go to Florida when it's all said and done and it's going to be sunny again, and we'll just watch the sermons online. You see what I'm saying? If there isn't something deeper and more powerful going on when we get together, so what would be deeper and more powerful going on? How about fellowship? How about people really experiencing the love of Jesus through me? That I don't come and sit and take it in and become entertained listening to a great choir and good music, but I come every day with an expectation that I'm in service. And that would be the third thing, maybe, is that it's those people we call pastors that should be doing the work on Sunday. Maybe the thing I ought to let go is the fact that everyone, come on, we were all baptized into the kingdom of God. We were all baptized into the ministry of Jesus Christ. We've all been gifted with the spiritual gifts of God, and that we all ought to be doing the work of the Lord. Not just those paid people. I'll do my part, you do your part. And think what God will do if we are able to let that go. And then I was wondering, what would happen if we would do less as a church rather than more? Because we have this attitude that the best churches are doing more. They're taking care of more. They're serving more. They're having more services. They're having more Bible studies. They're having more events. They're having more and more and more. How many right now sense that their life is already too full with too much? Do you really want us to do more? What would happen if we would choose to do less? That made a big difference. And that what you and I experienced was so powerful and meaningful that it changed us. Because you can't give to people what you don't have, right? And if we're not growing spiritually, if we're not being challenged spiritually to be something else, if we're allowing our busyness to keep us from experiencing the presence of God and experiencing the love of God, how do we grow in the love of God in such a way that we give it away? But if we are managing our lives, which may mean that we have to let some things go, if we're managing our lives in such a way that God is growing in us, we can't help but give that away. And people will encounter the love of Christ in an amazing way if you and I begin to sense that our most significant role as a member of the church is to be in an intimate, passionate, life-changing relationship with Jesus Christ. And then out of that relationship, to reach out to the world. So let me ask, do we need to give something away? Stop doing something? Do we need to let something go? And wonder what plan God would have for the kingdom of God for Sydney First United Methodist Church if it was willing to let that go so that his plan, his greater plan, his more powerful plan could take place. So that we could work not for what we wanted, but for what God wanted for the next generation. I wonder, what do we have to let go? Father, I don't know the answer totally. For each life comes here as an open book, and we just pray that you reach out and touch it. But may we be so in tune to you, so willing to listen to you. May the prophets in our lives be willing to speak to us, that we learn what it means to really let it go for the kingdom of God. Hear us as we pray. Father, not our will, but yours be done.